Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David T. Kramer. This is Sociology, and today we're talking about social institutions. What is a social institution? Where do social institutions come from? What are the major social institutions? Let's take a look at a typical day in the life of Marina. Marina awakens in the morning, she kisses her husband and dresses for work. Then she prepares breakfast for her children, she drops him off at school, and then Marina goes on to work. Marina spends the day managing accounts payable and accounts receivable for her employer because she is an accountant. She also ensures that her employer is following local, state, and federal government regulations. And then, after work, she drops off the items that she collected from her colleagues for her church's food bank. Marina is quite the lady. What are the major social institutions? Family, education, economy, polity, or government, and religion. What is a social institution? A social institution is an organized set of beliefs, practices, and relationships. A social institution is a channeling of human action in important areas of societal life. A social institution is passed on from one generation to the next. A social institution is a method of providing solutions for perpetually unfinished business, and a social institution is interdependent with the other social institutions. What is a social institution? A social institution is a collection of statuses and roles. For example, the status of husband is a position in relationship to the status of wife in the family. The status of teacher is a position in relationship to the status of student in education. The status of entrepreneur is a position in relationship to the status of consumer in the economy. The status of tax collector, tax spender, or politician is a status in position in relationship to the position or status of taxpayer. And the minister is a position in relationship to the worshiper in religion. Social institution is a collection of statuses, and along with each status goes behavioral expectations, which we call roles. A social institution is not a specific family like the Kramers. It is not a specific school district like USD 382. It is not a specific business or corporation like Microsoft. It is not a specific government entity like Pratt County Court. And it is not a specific church like the Methodist Church within religion. Rather, a social institution is broader. It's more important, we could say, than any one specific entity within any of the major social institutions. Where do social institutions come from? Well, the predecessors of human beings, of Homo sapiens, were using tools about 1 million years ago. They were using fire about 500,000 years ago. And then, about 170,000 years ago, we evolved into our current species, what we call Homo sapiens today. And then, something incredibly important and powerful occurs, because the language acquisition device, the LAD, what Noam Chomsky calls the language acquisition device, develops in terms of the human brain. This is an incredibly powerful thing that happens because language allows us to accumulate massive amounts of information, to share that information, and to pass that information on to our offspring. And in terms of our conversation today, language allows us to develop social institutions. And then another very important development within the history of Homo sapiens is the development of agriculture, what is sometimes called the Neolithic Revolution. Humans no longer have to hunt and gather in order to survive. Instead, they begin to domesticate plants, to plant seeds, to nurture those seeds, to harvest those seeds, to domesticate plants and animals. And so that allows for a tremendous expansion in terms of the division of labor. And that allows us to have the kinds of social institutions that we think of in terms of our modern society today. That gets started about 10,000 years ago in several places around the planet. And in fact, if we take a look at that period of time, there's estimated to be between 13 and 20,000 different societies or language groups or cultures, probably not more than 200 to 500 individuals in terms of size, but 13 to 20,000 language groups. This is what linguists and anthropologists tell us today. Spread around the globe: South America, North America, Central America, Africa, Australia, Asia. Spread around the globe, we have 13 to 20,000 language groups when this Neolithic revolution or this agricultural revolution occurs. And they no longer are, after several thousand years ago, people are no longer dependent upon being hunters and gatherers, or at least not. Obviously, some continue in that fashion. But when the Neolithic revolution occurs about 10,000 years ago, we have from 13 to 20,000 language groups spread around the globe. So these people are accumulating knowledge, accumulating information, sharing that information, passing that information on to their offspring, and creating social institutions. Language allows the development of social institutions. Where do social institutions come from? Probably the best explanation is provided by Peter Berger and Thomas Luckman in their classic book in sociology called The Social Construction of Reality. As humans act and interact, their behavior becomes a habit, becomes a taken for granted routine. And then those routine actions in which individuals are taking other individuals into consideration and they are working toward a common goal, those become roles. Roles are action expectations for our actions. They channel our behavior. Roles are behavioral expectations for an individual holding a position in relation to other individuals. Roles are understood and communicated, once again, with language. Language is incredibly important. For example, it may be understood by everyone in a particular social group that the parents are the ones who discipline their own children. In another social group, a different group, it may be understood and communicated that that's the uncle's job. And not any uncle, just any uncle, but the mother's brother. In other words, that the disciplining of children is one of the mother's brother's roles. In either case, roles are soon experienced by everyone in the cultural group as part of their objective reality. Roles created by individuals harden, and then they act back on the same individuals, as well as act upon later generations of individuals. Berger and Luckman call this process externalization. In other words, they have three concepts: externalization, objectivation, and internalization. But the process by which we create these social roles, by which we externalize ourselves, they call that externalization. Externalization is the process by which humans create social roles. Objectivation is when those roles, which are the outcomes of interacting with individuals, become an objective reality. They harden into behavioral expectations. And then those behavioral expectations act back upon those individuals and subsequent generations of individuals. So internalization is the term that Berger and Luckman use. Internalization is when those roles are learned by individuals as part of their objective reality. Social institutions, therefore, are created and recreated by individuals as they interact with each other. Here we go again. Language. Language, the systematic set of significant symbols. Language makes it possible for humans to externalize, objectivate, and internalize the social institutions which they construct. Now, we have this model in sociology called structural functionalism. Now, the structural functionalists believe that society is a system, and they believe that just like an organism has structures that provide specialized functions, for example, a heart to circulate blood, lungs to put oxygen into that blood, intestines, an intestinal tract to take nutrients out of the food that is consumed and get that into the blood to circulate to all the cells. Just like an organism has a system of structures that provide specialized functions for the organism, the structural functionalists say society is the same type of thing. And the structures that provide specialized functions for the social system we call social institutions. For example, the family is the primary caregiver of newcomers to the society. Education prepares those children for adult roles. The economy provides production and exchange of goods. The polity is there to maintain order. And religion provides the meaning of life and death and helps to comfort us during times of stress. Some sociologists say society is real. Others say no. Is society a separate reality? Well, David Emil Durkheim says yes, so does Talcott Parsons, and so does Charles Warner from the University of Kansas. They take the realist position and they say yes, society is a separate reality. Society exists over and above the individual. The whole is greater than the sum of its individual parts. Society is greater than the individuals who make up society. And they would say that social institutions provide permanent solutions to the system's unfinished business. The individualists like George Homans, Ludwig von Mises, and Murray Rothbard say no, society is just a metaphor. It does not exist separate from the individuals associating with each other. And rather, social institutions provide solutions to the individual's business, not to some abstraction that we call society. And the individualists would say, furthermore, we have the freedom and the right to both associate and to disassociate as well. So role looks different from the realist position as compared to the individualist position. From the realist position, the demands of others become all-encompassing, become all-important. And individuals are supposed to plug into these roles that are parts of the social institutions. And if there's any social problems, it's because people have not been properly socialized into their role. But the individuals say, no, when it comes to the role, others owe me something as well. In other words, that it is in the roles that we play that others meet our demands as well. And so social institutions owe the individual something, and it's not supposed to just be all the individual acting out his behavioral expectations. So role becomes a reciprocal kind of concept from the individualist perspective. The demands of self are just as important as the demands of others. And once again, from the individualist perspective, we have the right to disassociate from those others if we do not believe that the roles that we are playing are meeting our demands as well. So, what if Marina, instead of getting married, decided to remain single? Or what if instead of marrying another man, she married another woman? Or what if she decided to remain childless? What if instead of plugging into jobs, she decided to dumpster dive in order to acquire her material needs? What if she was non-religious? And what if she advocated a stateless society? What if Marina decided to homeschool her children? For the individualists, that's not a problem. For the structural functionalists and the realists, that's a problem. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation today. Once again, my name is David T. Kramer. This is Sociology, and today we've talked about social institutions.